Tom, we've asked fans and listeners this morning talking about buying, what has to happen for them to be fully bought into this Razorback football team in 2021. Is there a game or a couple of games to you that they either have to compete in or win that you feel like the fan base will truly buy into this team if it plays out that way?
Hey, guys. Good morning. And, the Rice game to open the season, I mean, you need to win that one, right? Because Rice hasn't been that good. I know they've got some weapons. I'll probably do a deeper dive into Rice during the course of the summer. But I think week 2 against Texas, they'll be an underdog, obviously. But the toughness that the Razorbacks showed just in year 1, not crumbling in certain games, having chances late in some games, and just kind of being in the mix, I think was encouraging. And so against Texas, if you can keep them from, unleashing the way Steve Sarkisian's Alabama teams did down the stretch last year, just kind of contain them a little bit and then move the ball. I mean, how well Arkansas moves the ball in games 1 and games 2, I mean, they're going to have to keep building from it, but you got to get something going. And so the home game against Texas was a pretty good amount of fanfare. I think is going to be, kind of a weather rain for the Razorbacks.
When you look at the games this upcoming season, I mean, this schedule, Tom, once again, it's the toughest schedule in college football. And like the Texas game you just brought up, you got to go to Athens. That's your other game in Georgia. I mean, should the expectation be for them to surpass and get to a bowl game? Or what is your expectation? What should it be for fans in 2021?
Well, obviously, when I write my season prediction and I put forth a kind of a fanciful scenario for every game, but the final record I predict is legit. That's what I really think they're going to go. And I just feel 6-6 right now as for the regular season is it attainable? But also you're going to have to upset some people. I mean, you're going to have to beat Mississippi State at home. You're going to have to go on the road and have a chance to beat Ole Miss and Auburn coming here, a game that you really did win last year. So there's a lot of swing games, and it's just how you show up week to week. And by the way, side note here, this Georgia deal, I just thought Arkansas, I think the SEC dumped on Arkansas last year. Like, oh, this is a rebuilding team. Let's don't make anybody mad except the team that's, not going to do very well. We're going to give them both Georgia and Florida, and they got to go to Georgia again next year. And they probably thought, oh, Sam Pittman playing his former team, that'll create some excitement. But I just didn't think it was fair. And, these things do tend to happen to the Arkansas in football, Arkansas and South Carolinas and Kentucky's and Vanderbilt's more often.
Yeah. Tom, every team's going to have some what we're calling super seniors back, that extra year for guys. This group with Arkansas, and you look at Grant Morgan and you look at Myron Cunningham and maybe Ty Clary, maybe look on that defensive line at Dorian Gerald, and you look at these players. I mean, who amongst that group of super seniors do you think could have the biggest difference or make the biggest difference for this team this year?
Well, I mean, any number of them. But I'll tell you this. Imagine where the O-line would be if you didn't have Cunningham and Clary coming back. I mean, people don't rate the Arkansas O-line very highly to begin with. But without those two guys, I mean, you're looking at, Tykeus Crawford. Maybe he has to start. Maybe he has to be your left tackle. And you still got Dalton Wagner on the other side. But those two guys are obviously very key. And I'll tell you, we talked about on this show numerous times about DNs and finding somebody who can make a difference, who can win one-on-one battles and upset quarterbacks. Well, Dorian Gerald's a guy. He's had a lot of the injury issues, the neck deal, and all that. Maybe if he rose up and provided being a force at DN as he was recruited to do, he could be a big-time difference maker. And
you think about that kind of 1-2 combo potentially of Dorian Gerald and that group of linebackers, with Poole and Morgan and Henry. You just think about what that maybe could be in the box this year defensively for this team. A pretty good 1-2 punch with some guys that have played some snaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, when you've been through the SEC wars, you get a little guile to you. You know, and they always describe Grant Morgan as like a slippery guy. Like, there's a big guard in front of him who weighs 320, and somehow, Grant Morgan slides between and makes a tackle. And Bumper Pool can do the same kind of thing. So there's a chance that these veteran guys can be plugged into a system that is, because you look at their numbers last year, they weren't great defensive numbers, but we didn't expect them to have great defensive numbers. But Barry Odom pushed the buttons and did the schemes and managed to pull off the wins over Ole Miss and Mississippi State by, running the drop 8 stuff and confusing these quarterbacks. Well, they should have beaten Auburn and obviously had chances to beat LSU and Missouri. So I just think that they're going to do well at kind of outperforming what their overall numbers look like. And if you can start getting that way on offense a little bit, then you're onto a good deal.
Tom, what did you think of Penny Hardaway potentially being linked to the Orlando Magic job? And we framed it as, well, this could be a thing Arkansas could take advantage of on basketball recruiting. If he leaves Memphis, what do you think that does to the college basketball landscape, especially with Cal being linked to the NBA once again?
Yeah, well, Eric Musselman and his staff, I think, are just going to do their deal. They're going to recruit well, but certainly Memphis is a gold mine for talent, and Penny Hardaway has done a tremendous job recruiting that. So I just think it would open up a metro area connected to Arkansas, essentially, that always has a pipeline of talent, and so it would be a decent thing. And I have no idea what the odds are or whatever of Hardaway landing that job. Although I believe he played for the Magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those were some fun teams to watch. Dennis Scott, Nick Anderson, Shaquille O'Neal, and company, the mid-'90s teams that he was a part of. And we're talking about Coach Williams. We're talking about Coach Krzyzewski. Coach K will be done after this year. Coach Williams is already retired. We'll see what happens with Penny. We'll see what happens with Cal. But if you're Eric Musselman, you're Arkansas, and this was something Tommy brought up last week, you got to have to like where you're at right now with the college basketball landscape changing when it's been really the same couple of coaches these last couple of years. And it seems like a very ripe time to take advantage of the crop that's ahead of you.
Yeah, and nice long view, Ty, big picture, because, the blue bloods like Duke and Kentucky and Kansas, they've recruited in North Carolina, they've recruited at a different level than most schools for a long time. So things always cycle around and move around, and when you have a regime in, like you're at Arkansas, you feel like this is your time. Cycle up with a great coach who knows how to work the transfer portal and the JUCO ranks and get guys in here who you can plug into spots and roster build too and team build, because I think from an X's and O's standpoint, you can't find a whole lot of guys who are exceeding what Eric Musselman and his group are doing. So this could be a fine, kind of a golden age for Arkansas basketball, and it had been a while since there was one of those.
And maybe the timing's just coincidence, but Coach K announcing his retirement, he's got one more year. Coach Roy Williams out. Some of the these Hall of Fame coaches come at a time where obviously you mentioned the transfer portal, but name, image, likeness coming in, just some of the sea changes that we're seeing with college basketball and player power being lifted. Maybe that tells you they think there's more problems and more rough seas on the immediate horizon with that, and they just don't want to take that on. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but hey, they know the challenges that are ahead in the next 2 to 3 years with this too, Tom.
I think they do. And Tommy, I think you and I are pretty like-minded. When we think about NIL and the resulting issues, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion. I think there's going to be a lot of schools pointing fingers at other schools for inducements, and right now, actually, the states and the federal government are all at cross purposes and at different places in terms of how to implement state law and how it dovetails into NCAA stuff, and it almost feels like we're going to enter this Wild West period.
Yep.
and the schools that are the best, have the highest resources, are going to find ways to capitalize on this. I just shudder to think what it's going to feel like campus to campus, because there's so many other things. I mean, we're still coming back from COVID, and schools had to devote so much time and resource to coping with COVID, and now you're going to drop this in right on top of it. We're going to have a little bit of chaos. I don't think that's avoidable. It's going to be chaotic.
Can you imagine the conversations if you're at Duke or you're at North Carolina, Kentucky, these blue blood programs that are, they don't even recruit 4-stars. They only talk to 5-star players. Every conversation hereforth is going to be not about playing time, not about NBA development. It's going to be about money. It's going to be about, well, what kind of deals can be arranged? What, can I expect $500,000 or $700,000 a year in a dorm? I mean, to me, as I can only imagine how frustrating for Coach K and Coach Williams and those type. To me, it just maybe I'm wrong. It just seems like they're throwing up their hands and, hey, let somebody else deal with this new set of problems.
I tend to agree with that, Tommy. And think about this: there's collateral issues that come into play here, because you guys probably saw it, just like I did over the weekend. Universities have entered into all kinds of contracts with advertisers. Mm-hmm. And so what if your star player signs up for some deal that's a rival to your turf provider or your beverage provider? You know what I mean? So it's going to be really hard to navigate. And I'll tell you, the compliance guys at all these schools and at the NCAA are going to get a real workout here right after the COVID deal.
No, it's going to keep on going. Tom, we appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk, recap the College World Series and the outcome between Vanderbilt and Mississippi State with you on Thursday, okay?
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I think Vandy's kind of turned into the anti-hero here, because I think a lot of people felt NC State got jobbed, and so they kind of turned on Vandy a little bit. And it's unfortunate, great team, but I think that's what's happened.
I don't mind it. See you, buddy.